So when you're looking for the O2 sensors, of course you go down the engine, the exhaust pipe of the engine. Sometimes a lambda zone will be connected here already. You will see that, you know, in the headers, and there will be a sensor mounted right there with cable coming out. That's called the lambda zone. Then on the other way, in most cars, when you see the catalytic converter, it's kind of like a bigger part of the exhaust pipe in front of it, or on top of it, or also behind it, behind the catalytic converter. You will find the O2 sensors, and of course it's easy to find because normally this is the exhaust pipe, and then all of a sudden you have something mounted on the exhaust pipe and there's a cable coming out. Yeah, so here you will find there are possibilities to find the O2 sensors. You have either run right before the catalytic converter or on top of the catalytic converter. However, you have to name them like first and second. So if you have this one and this one, but not this one, then you have this as a first and this as a second. If you don't have this one, but this one, then this is the first and this is the second. You will not have three of those, like here in the picture. You will always have just two. So name it, for instance, 1 and 2. And let's say you don't have this one, what's right on top of the catalytic converter. So those cables coming out there, most of the time are 3 cables again, with plus and minus and 1 signal cable. And again, you have to find the signal cable. If it's the voltage based sensor, then the signal cable will rapidly changes between 100 millivolts and let's say 800 millivolts. It will change rapidly up and down between. It's almost really hard to read. So this signal cable, you have to cut this one, and also you have to connect that, of course. You have to extend that towards the engine compartment or wherever you want to mount the O2 sensor enhancer. So now let's say this is the cable, and this is usually the way the cable goes to the ECU, to the board computer. So what you do, you cut the cable in a position or in a spot where it's pretty dry, and most likely not that the cable will be torn apart underneath the car. So here you connect now an extension wherever you want to have the O2 sensor enhancer mounted, and on the other cable, this one what goes to the ECU, you have to extend that as well. So you have 2 cables going up in the engine compartment, for instance, and those 2 cables, you have to remember which one is coming from the O2 sensor and which one is going towards the ECU. So this one is coming from the O2 sensor, so in the little device, in the O2 sensor enhancer, you have an in and an out. In means the signal from the O2 sensor goes in, and out means it goes out towards the ECU. Okay, so here you can see the catalytic converter. The second O2 sensor is mounted on top of the catalytic converter, and we disconnected the sensor cable and we extended it. As you can see, we extended the wire to go inside the engine compartment, and this guy has 2 exhaust pipes, so we had to do that several times. You see the second, or let's say the first O2 sensor back there, and then the second is right here. So here you can see the yellow and white cable. The extenders from the O2 sensors are coming up here in the engine compartment. We have them coming up here behind the brake drum, and then all the cables are going inside the engine, the passenger compartment, that we can adjust the sensors from inside the engine, the passenger compartment. Also, you can see here the blue and green wires They are hooked up exactly the same way like described to the IAT sensor, to the CTS and the MAP sensor. Here on this car you see here the air filter. This is the air intake hose or pipe, and this is not a MAP sensor, this is a IAT sensor, an air intake temperature sensor. We have hooked up with thief connectors. We have hooked up the sensor enhancer, and also down there you see the CTS, the coolant temperature sensor, and we have also hooked up with thief connectors the enhancer, and the wires go all inside the engine the passenger compartment. This car does not have a MAF or MAF sensor. This runs with a MAP sensor, and that's connected back there.